Hello everyone, welcome to lecture 2 on the topic the living world. So in the last lecture, what we studied was about the diversity in the living world and what are the characteristics of a living organism. So we studied that there are many characteristics like growth, reproduction. So certain characteristics were associated with the living organisms that are not present in the non-living organisms. So these were the characters. These what we studied in the last lecture. So in the last lecture also we studied about the diversity. We get to know about 1.7 to 1.8 million species of plants and animals have been identified. Of different organisms have been identified worldwide, and there are many yet to be identified. So when we know that these many number of species or these many number of organisms are being identified, therefore we require a system where we can name these organisms individually so that there is no confusion in the scientific community regarding the naming of the different organisms. So that every organism should be known by a unique identification system or should have a unique ID or unique name, from which when we say that this, for example, when I say Mangifera indica, I should know that we all are referring to the same particular organism, that is mangroves as a whole. So that we get to know that the scientific community uses the binomial nomenclature system to name the organisms, and the binomial nomenclature system is based on the principle of using the genus and specific epithet in the naming system. So the first part of the binomial nomenclature system, as I explained in the last lecture also, represents the genus, while the second part represents the specific epithet or the species of the organism. So the species, so in the last lecture, I was continuously using these terms, and in today's lecture, we will get to know what actually I mean by genus or the species of any organism. So these are the different taxonomic categories that we will learn today. So today we will learn about the taxonomy and the classification, which is the basic principle of the taxonomy. So why classification is really important? Because a lot number of living organisms that are present in our environment, a crucial solution to identify or to understand all the organisms is to classify them into different groups. So by understanding a particular characteristic or particular group, we can assign those characteristics all the members of that group. So it is like, suppose we all are Indians. So we all Indians are in common. So this is when I talk about Indian as a whole, we should know that these are the characteristics that are present in all the Indians. So this is the type of classification that I am talking about in the biological system as well. So in the classification system, basically classification allows systematically group all the entities of the organisms into the convenient categories that are based on the easily observable characteristics. For example, we know plants, animals. So these are the different groups in which we can classify the organisms: plants, animals, microbes. Microbes, for example, are ones that are visible under the microscope only, which are not visible under the naked eyes. So this characteristic will be common to all the microbes when I am talking about. Similarly, when I talk about plants, plants are the organisms that do not have the ability to move from one place to another. So they do not have the movement ability. So when I talk about plants, I know that the living organisms which cannot move may come under the category of plants, while animals have the tendency to move from one place to another. So certain characteristics can be assigned to certain groups, and that can be the basis for the classification. For example, we can classify different broad groups, as I mentioned, such as plants and animals, and then we can move to more specific categories like dogs, cats, or insects. So this forms the fundamental aspect for our approach, like to understand and organize the diverse array of the living organisms. So when we classify the organisms into different categories, then comes the term taxa. So taxa is a term which is used in biology to refer to a group of organisms that are formally ranked and named within a hierarchical classification system. So we know that even in our families we have hierarchy. Even if I talk about the entire world, we have countries, different countries, and even within the country we have different regions, we have different groups. So similarly, if I applied those to the biological system, so taxa is a term which is used in biology to refer to group of organisms that are formally ranked and named within a hierarchical classification system. This will become more clear as we will move further into this lecture. So the classification system is known as the taxonomy, and this taxonomy or the classification system helps us to organize the vast diversity of living organisms based on their evolutionary relationships and shared characteristics. So the humans share the similar characteristics. We have the same evolutionary history. Therefore, we can be classified or we can be put into the same taxa under the same group. So therefore, the classification system basically allows, which is known as the taxonomy, allows to organize the vast diversity of the living organisms based on their evolutionary relationship with the other organisms and the characteristics which a particular group of organisms shared with the other individuals of that organism. So taxa range from broad, so it can be plants, animals, which are very broad taxa under which, like they are very broad umbrella terms under which there are many organisms which can further be grouped into smaller taxa. So the taxa range from broad, inclusive to more specific, exclusive ones. Like for example, if I talk about animal, which is a broader taxa, under that we can have cats as a different group, we can have dogs as a different group, we can have humans as a different group. So as we move towards the more specific characteristics, we will become more, the taxa will become shorter or narrower, we can say, and the characteristics will become more specific. So the external and internal structure, along with the structure cells, the development process, and ecological composition of organisms are essential and form the basis of modern taxonomic studies. Hence, characterization, identification, classification, and nomenclature are the basic to the taxonomy. So firstly, what we need to do, suppose I found any organism, I need to characterize that organism. This organism has this feature, this feature, this feature. Then I need to that. After identification and characterization of that organism, I need to classify that organism under a particular group. So I need to classify the organism under a particular group, and then after the classification, using the binomial nomenclature system, I will give a particular name to that particular organism. So the taxonomy includes the 4 different processes that are characterization, identification, classification, and then naming of the organism, which is the nomenclature. Now there is another term which is used, which is systematics. So throughout the history, there has been a persistent human curiosity to explore the various forms of life. We know that humans are very curious to know what different forms of life exist in different parts of the world, whether it includes the hot springs or the frigid zones. So the curiosity of humans have actually allowed to identify the various diversities and also not only the identification but to understand the connections between the different groups. So this field of inquiry has been named as systematics. So systematics is a Latin word which has been derived from a word systema that means or signifies the systematic organization of the organisms. So the name itself suggests that systematics means a systematic study of something. So it involves the systematic organization of organisms based on the characteristics or considering the evolutionary relationship between the different organisms. So on the systematics itself, Linnaeus has published one book which is Systema Naturae, and this question can be asked in the NEET. It has been asked previously also. So the publication of linears that is based on the systematic organization of organisms, or we can say on the field of systematics, is Systema Naturae. So over the time, the scope of systematics has been expanded. Earlier it was just the systematic organization. Now it involves the identification, nomenclature, classification, and the evolutionary relationship also, that how different organisms are evolutionarily related. So the systematics now, the scope of systematics has been expanded. It is now not limited to the systematic organization based on identification, nomenclature, and classification, but also involves the evolutionary history or the evolutionary relationship of the organism with the other organism. So based on the different relations between the different organisms, or based on the characteristics which a certain organism carry and share with the other organism, we perform the classification. And the classification process is not a single step. It involves a hierarchical series of steps, each representing a rank or a category. So the classification process is not a single step. It involves a hierarchical series of steps, each representing a specific rank or a category. So these categories collectively form the taxonomic hierarchy, and each category is an integral part of overall taxonomic arrangement, which is known as the taxonomic category. As I mentioned, these categories are itself referred to as taxa, and collectively constitute the taxonomic hierarchy. So these taxa represents the taxonomic hierarchy, and we will understand what are the different taxa that are being involved. Each category viewed as a classification unit therefore signifies a rank. Rank is commonly termed as taxon, which is a singular, and taxa is a plural term. So the categories, whenever we classify any organism, the categories which we use to classify that organism actually represents a rank or a category or a taxa, or if I talk about in terms of singular sense, it is taxon. So we can understand different taxonomic categories with the help of the following example. To illustrate the concept of taxonomic categories and hierarchy, we can consider the example of insects. So are characterized by common features such as they have 3 pairs of jointed legs. They are identifiable concrete entities that can be classified. So that 3 pair of jointed legs is a particular characteristic of insects. So hence, insects has been assigned a rank or a category within the taxonomic hierarchy. It is very, very important to note that these taxonomic groups or the categories are not merely the morphological aggregates. So they are not only based on the morphological sense that anything that has 6 legs or 3 pairs of jointed legs will be termed as insects, but apart from the morphological characteristics, they are the distinct biological entities. All the organisms have the different biological identity. Each rank or taxon therefore serves as a unit of classification. So now we will learn about the different taxonomic categories that I was referring to. That now we will learn about different ranks or different taxa or different taxon that we were studying. So the taxonomical classification of all the known organisms has resulted in establishment of common categories such as kingdom, phylum. Phylum is also known as division in case of plants, class, order, family, genus, and species. That is KDCOFGS. Kingdom, division, class, order, family, genus, species. Phylum and division are same. Levels of taxa, phylum is used for the animals and division is used for the plants. So KDCOFGS. So in both plant and animal kingdoms, species is recognized as the lowest category, while the kingdom is the highest category. So species is the lowest category of any taxonomic hierarchical system, and the kingdom is the highest category of the taxonomic hierarchy. To determine the placement of organism in various categories, the fundamental prerequisite is the comprehensive understanding Until or unless we do not have the information of the characteristics of a particular organism, we will not be able to classify or put that organism, place that organism into any category. To place any organism into any category, we need to have the information about the characteristics that are being exhibited by the individuals or a group of organisms. This knowledge is identification of both similarities and dissimilarities among the individuals of the same species and other types of organisms. So basically, until or unless we do not have the information about the characteristics that organism have, we will not be able to identify similarities or differences as with the individual of the different group. So therefore, it is the most important prerequisite which is required for the identification or the comprehensive understanding of the characteristics that are being exhibited by an individual or a group of organisms. So we will learn about these taxonomic categories one by one, and we will go in the ascending order. That is, we will start with the lowest category, which is the species, and then we will move towards the higher order, which is the and ultimate, which is the highest order of taxonomical hierarchy. So species, in taxonomic studies, a species is identified as a group of individual organisms sharing fundamental similarities. So the group of individuals that are highly similar, that has all the that share the fundamental similarities, will be put in a group which is known as species. Distinguishing one species from closely related ones relies on discerning distinct morphological differences. So there will be very minor, there might be very minor morphological differences that allow us to differentiate between the two species. For example, if I talk about Mangifera indica, which is mango, Solanum tuberosum, which is potato, Panthera leo, which is lime. So in these names, as we learn in the last lecture also, in the binomial nomenclature, that the name indica, tuberosum and leo will represent the specific epithet or the species, while the initial words like Mangifera, Solanum and Panthera will represent the genera that indicate a higher taxonomic level, which is the genus. So basically, each genus encompasses one or more specific epithets denoting different organisms with morphological similarities. So a genus like, for example, the Mangifera is a broad term, which is the genus. It may have different species, different specific epithets that it might comprise. So genus is a collection of related species that share some more common characteristics compared to other species in other genera. So it is a genus. So genus includes the relation of the collection of the related species. It has more characteristics common as compared to the other genera. So at this level, we are now comparing with the different genera. So, for example, if we have Panthera as a genus, we have Mangifera as a genus. Mangifera belongs to plant kingdom. Panthera belongs to animal kingdom. But so it will include. So the genus will include a related species that will share more common characteristics compared to species in another genera. So it can be said that genera are the groups of closely related species, basically. Those species that are not exactly similar but share many similar characteristics can be put under the same genus. For instance, while potato and brinjal are distinct species, they fall under the same genus, which is the Solanum. So here we know Solanum tuberosum for the potato. So both potato and brinjal are different species, right? We know that potato and brinjals do not look similar. So, however, they fall under the genus based on the certain characteristics which they might have common. So both the genus Solanum. Similarly, if I talk about the lion, which is Panthera leo, leopard, which is Panther ardus, and tiger, They have several features, common features as species within the genus Panthera. So within the genus, different species to a single genus based on the similarities which they share. Notably, this genus differs from another. So if I talk about the genus Panthera, obviously it differs from the species that encompass various cat species. Now, of the genus we have family. So in taxonomic, family encompasses a cluster of related genera. The concept is same, hence similar to what we have studied at the genus level. So genus encompasses a family. Genus encompasses a group related species. Similarly, family encompasses a cluster of related genera displaying fewer similarities than those found within the genera and the species. So you might have noticed that as we are moving towards the higher taxonomic categories or the higher rank as we are moving, the similarities within the group is decreasing. So families are characterized based on both vegetative and reproductive in the case of plant species. For instance, within the realm of plants, three distinct genera like Solanum, Petunia, and Datura are classified under the family Solanaceae. So broader term Solanaceae. Under that we have Solanum, Petunia, and Datura. So Solanum also like we have two like potato and brinjal that comes under the species. At the species level, there is the difference. Similarly, if I talk about the animal kingdom, I will consider this of family Felidae. So here we learn that the genus of Panthera and Felis are different. However, they both comes under family, which is the Felidae, that includes the genus Panthera, which is of lion, tiger, and leopard, and the genus Felis, which is used for the cats. So they all come under the family of Felidae. Similarly, we will notice similarities and differences whenever we examine a cat and a dog. So these can be considered under the two families, which is Felidae for the cats and Canidae for the dogs. After family, we have order. So in taxonomical classification, higher categories such as orders are generally identified by examining aggregates of characteristics. So at a higher taxonomic level, an order is a grouping of families that share a common characteristic. So in this, the families share a few common characteristics, and based on that, they are classified into different. Now, these share fewer in number which with family. So the characteristics are very few in number, and if I compare to the different genera or at the species level. So as we are moving from the species towards the higher taxonomic categories, the characteristics a particular group share decreases. So the shared characteristics are fewer in number. For instance, in plant families like Populaceae and Solanaceae are placed under the order Polymonates, primarily based on the floral characteristics. Similarly, the order Carnivore, for example, if I consider for the animals, they encompasses families such as Felidae and Canidae. So Felidae and Canidae are different, basically different families to the cats and one belonging to the dogs, but both of them belong to the order Carnivore. So as I move towards the higher taxonomic categories, the shared features like lowers down. So the shared characteristics are fewer in number. Obviously, the cats will not share the much characteristics with the dogs. Some characteristics will be similar. That is why they are placed under the same order. But the characteristics which a particular cat will share with the another cat will be obviously different that it will share with the dog. So therefore, as we move from the family to the order level, the number of shared characteristics within the different groups will lower down. So this hierarchical arrangement allows for organizing and classifying the organism based on shared characteristics at different taxonomic levels. So this was about the order. The next is basically degree encompasses a group of For instance, the order Primata, which includes monkeys, gorillas, and gibbons, is classified in the Mammalia. So, order is a group of similar families. Families is a group of similar genus. Genus is a group of similar species. Class is a group of similar order. So, this class is also home to the order Carnivora, which consists as we mentioned, Canidae, tigers, cats, and dogs. So, class Mammalia, however, also comprises various other orders. So, the class Mammalia is a taxonomic category at the class level, and it encompasses various groups like primates, for example, which includes monkeys, gorillas, and gibbons. Also, it includes carnivores, and also it includes many other more groups, more orders. So again, as we move from the order to the class level, the number of shared characteristics between the different groups will decrease. Next is a phylum. So a phylum is a taxonomic category in biological classification that ranks above the class but below the kingdom. It represents certain fundamental body plans and structural characteristics. So phylum are broad and diverse. It groups to similarities, but allowing for considerable variation within the group. So again, now that it encompasses the different classes that share the similar characteristics. The classification of organisms into phyla is a key step in organizing the diversity of life, which is based on their evolutionary relationship and overall body organization. So this includes, the most important thing to remember is that the state of the hierarchy in the taxonomic categories, and the other is the basis of the classification at each level. The classification of organisms into phyla is a key step in organizing the diversity of life based on their evolutionary relationship and overall body organization. So examples of phyla include Chordata. So Chordata is a phyla that includes vertebrates like mammals and birds, arthropods like insects, spiders, and crustaceans, mollusks like snails, clams, and squids. Chordata is a broad term. We have non-chordates as well. So these are different phyla that are present within a kingdom. So phyla are comparatively broad and diverse. It allows the grouping together of similar organisms with significant similarities, but also allowing for considerable variation within the group. The broadest term, which is the highest taxonomic rank in the biological classification, representing a broad major living organism group, is a kingdom. So kingdoms are used to categorize and organize the diversity of life based on the fundamental characters and evolutionary relations. They are whether the kingdom is able to move, not move, whether they are able to synthesize food, not able to synthesize food, what are the fundamental characteristics. Traditionally, there was a 5 classification that was used. We will learn about the different classification system, the 5 kingdom classification system in details in the next lecture of the series, where we learn about the diversity of the world. But traditionally, there were 5 kingdom classification system that was used, which is Animalia, that includes animals, plants, that includes plants, and Monera. Bacteria and archaebacteria. However, now that the classification system has evolved, we can study in details about the DNA RNA level, and our understanding about the evolutionary relationship between the different organisms has improved a lot. So based on that improved understanding, both at the evolutionary level and the molecular level of the organ, now we have modified this taxonomic classification system, and in more recent and widely accepted taxonomic scheme, the five kingdom model has been expanded, or we can say it has been replaced by the three domain system. So the domain includes the archaea and eukarya, and then eukarya is further divided into several kingdoms like Animalia, Plantae, Fungi, and Protista. So earlier, whatever like Animalia, Plantae, Fungi, and Protista, but now Monera itself is divided into two other domains, which is Archaebacteria. And all the other have been put under the domain Eukarya, which is the eukaryotes. That involves the eukaryotes. That includes Animalia, Plantae, Fungi, and Protista. So this was at the kingdom level. So we get to know about different taxonomic categories like kingdom, division, which is also known as phylum, order, family, genus, and species. KDCOFGS. KDCOFGS. And as we move towards the higher taxonomic, the number of shared characteristics will become fewer. And as we move towards the species level, which is the lowest, that ranges from the species to the kingdom, and this has been represented in the ascending order. That is from the lowest, which is the species, to the highest, which is the kingdom. So basically, I was telling about the species being the most specific category, and we will learn about in details about this. We will be able to better understand this using the example of Homo sapiens, that is humans. So, arranging taxonomic categories in ascending order. What do I mean when I say that I arrange the taxonomic categories in the ascending order? Arranging the taxonomic categories in ascending order means organizing them from most specific, that is the species, and narrowly defined groups to the most inclusive and broadly encompassing group. It is really, really important to understand these terms here, that the species, because more the similar characteristics, obviously less the number of organisms that you can put into that. Suppose I have different items here, like I have balls, different colored balls, I have different colored boxes, and I have to put them into the larger boxes. So firstly, if I say that just classify them into the balls, and let's say the other item is pen. So firstly, I would say just classify them into the balls and the pens. So balls will share certain characteristics, pen will share certain characteristics. You can just put them into two different boxes, right? Now when I will say so suppose you have 50 balls and 40 pens. You put them into different boxes. Now when I will say from those balls, just segregate the balls based on the colors. So suppose there are 3 colored balls like red, white, and blue, and you classify them and put them into different boxes. In one box you put all the red balls, in the another box you put all the white balls, and in the third box you put all the blue balls. So the number of balls in suppose the red balls are 20, white balls are 10, and or you can say the white balls are 15, and the remaining ones are the blue balls. So the more the specificity you are showing, the number is decreasing, right? The group is becoming narrower. So when you classified them just on the basis of ball being a ball or a pen, the numbers were 50 and 40. But now when you further classify them based on more specific characteristics, like based on their colors as well, you get to know that the number is further more the specific characteristics which a particular taxonomic characteristic is sharing. Category is sharing, the group is narrowing down. So species is basically organizing is the most specific most specific category, while it is the narrowly defined group. While the kingdom is the most inclusive. So kingdom was the bigger box that has both pens and balls. So that bigger box include everything, but it is a broadly encompassing group. right? It shares the less characteristics with each other. So ball and pen do not share much characteristics with each other. Maybe the material with which they are made may be same. So that is why you might have put them in the same box. So more you move towards the specific characteristics, the group will narrow down. So species are the most specific but narrowly defined groups, while the kingdom is the most inclusive and broadly encompassing group. So in biological classification, which is known as taxonomy, the ascending group typically starts with the most specific category, that is species, and progresses through the increasing broader categories, which is the kingdom. The rationale behind this hierarchical arrangement is to organize the living organisms based on their evolutionary relationships and the shared characteristics. Now, starting with the species that represents the smallest and the most distinct unit, as I mentioned, the smallest. Why it is the smallest? Obviously, the number of organisms will be lower as compared to the other. So, representing the smallest, but it will be most distinct, as we know, as I try to make you understand with the example of the color of the balls. It is the most distinct unit, and moving up through the taxonomic levels, we arrive at a broader and more general categories encompassing a wider range of organisms. So this is the basis for the taxonomical classification. This is what I mean by the ascending arrangement of the taxonomic categories. That is from the species to the kingdom level. So these are certain examples that are being mentioned in the NCERT. So these are the organisms with their taxonomic categories. You can go through them once so that if it is asked as an MCQ, you might be able to answer those questions. So for example, I will take the example of man. So the biological name or the scientific name is Homo sapiens. Obviously, we know Homo will here represent the genus, sapiens will represent a specific epithet. We know the biological classification system, right? So the genus will be Homo, family will be Hominidae, order will be Primata, class will be Mammalia, and the phylum or division to which it will belong is Chordata. Similarly, housefly, the scientific name for the housefly is Musca domestica. Musca represents the genus under the family Muscidae, which comes under the order Diptera, class Insecta, and phylum is Arthropoda. Similarly, we can study for the mango and wheat also. That is for Mangifera indica and for Triticum aestivum. So I have here used the example of Homo sapiens to make you understand the taxonomic categories in a better way. So here, species Homo sapiens at the lowest level of the taxonomic hierarchy, Homo sapiens represents a specific species. This category includes all individual humans who can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. At the species level, we have used even the reproduction as a reproductive ability as a part of the classification, where the individuals of the same species can interbreed and produce the fertile offspring. The genus is Homo. So moving up the hierarchy, Homo is the genus in which Homo sapiens belongs. Now genus encompasses several beside Homo sapiens, it also encompasses other closely related species like Homo neanderthalensis, which are the Neanderthals, and Homo erectus. Now all these Homos genus belongs to the family Hominidae. The family Hominidae also includes not only the Homo but also other genera like Pan, that includes chimpanzees and baboons, etc., Pongo and gorilla. This group represents a broader category of related genera within the order Primates. So the order Primates includes not only the Hominidae but other animals like that belongs to Cercopithecidae, that is old world monkeys and others. This order comprises organisms that share certain anatomical and behavioral characteristics. After this, as we move further in the taxonomic categories, humans are a part of the class Mammalia, which includes all the mammals. Mammals are the organisms that have mammary glands, hair, fur, and are warm-blooded. So under that, we also came under the class Mammalia, but we are not similar to other mammals, right, in all the aspects. So therefore, when we move towards the lower levels, so our species become different. Now, all the members of the class Mammalia belongs to the phylum Chordata. So within the phylum Chordata, humans share characteristics like a notochord. So all the mammals will have a notochord, which is a flexible rod supporting the body at some stage of their development. So chordata can include vertebrates and other chordates. So basically vertebrates, non-vertebrates will all come under this category. And then we have kingdom Animalia. So finally, Homo sapiens belong to the kingdom Animalia that encompasses all the animals. And this is the most inclusive taxonomic category that group together the multicellular organisms that are heterotrophic in nature, that is, they obtain food by ingestion and lack the cell walls. So all the organisms which have these characteristics will be placed under the kingdom Animalia, and then based on certain similarities and differences, they will become different phyla, then different classes, then they will become different order, family, genus, and ultimately the different species. So these are the different taxonomic categories that I wanted to make you understand today. And so based on these, I have certain practice questions as well that we will discuss now. So the first is, what is the primary purpose of taxonomy? So is it studying the ecosystem? Is it identifying the minerals? Is it classifying and naming the different living organisms? Or is it analyzing the weather patterns? So basically we know that taxonomy allows the classification and naming of living organisms by placing them into the different groups based on their similarities and differences with the other. Which taxonomic category is higher than family but lower than class? So is it order, genus, phylum, or kingdom? We know K, D, O, F, G, S. So higher than the class, lower than the class but higher than the family is order. Right? So the taxonomic category which is higher than the family but lower than the class is the order. In the binomial nomenclature system, what does the first part of the scientific name represent? Is it a family? Is it a genus, species, or order? So we know in binomial nomenclature system, we have two parts which are associated with the binomial nomenclature system. The first part represents the genus. The other part represents the specific epithet or the species. So the first part of the scientific name represents the genus and the second part represents the species. Now, which of the following represents the correct hierarchy of the taxonomic category as we move from broader to the more specific? Option A, phylum, then class. So question is asking the correct hierarchy of taxonomic categories from broader to the more specific. We know broader means the ones which are at the higher levels, and more specific means at the lower level. So is it phylum, class, order, genus, species? Is it kingdom, family, order, class, genus? Is it class, order, family, genus, species? Or order, genus, family, phylum, and species? For this, we should learn the different taxonomic categories in order, and it is really important to answer such questions. You first need to learn the different taxonomic categories, which is kingdom, division, or phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species, with species being the more specific and kingdom being the most broadest. So the correct answer is option B, kingdom, family, class, kingdom, family, order, class, genus, and species. Right? The correct answer is from the species to the kingdom level. I need to mention the species at the option number 2. I will add that. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you get to know what are the different taxonomic categories, how these taxonomic categories, what is the importance of taxonomy, how these classification system actually helps in the naming of organism, and actually it allows putting different organisms into different groups based on their shared characteristics, and thereby allowing us to study different groups based on their certain similar characteristics and understanding the huge diversity which is present in our world. With this, our lecture on the chapter number 1, which is the living world, ends here.